Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm Producer James.
And I'm Stasia.
And we're watching X-Men Origins: Wolverine, minutes 60 through 70. Stasia, what happens?
All right. Wolverine chats with the Blob. Chat's doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
He boxes the Blob.
Sabretooth captures a young Cyclops. I kind of forgot about that. Kestrel and Wolverine crash Gambit's card game. Gambit. And everybody fights.
Fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and that's, I think this, doing our vibe check.
Yeah.
I think this is the stuff that, where it starts breaking down a little bit. Is everybody's just fighting, and like the point of it all is not, like, he fights Blob. For what? He fights Gambit. For what?
As we're going to talk about today, because we're going to talk a lot about the Blob, I would say that the argument and the boxing kind of tracks, because the Blob in particular, especially in like his early appearances, is kind of like that. He just is abrasive, and he's quick to fight people, and he's quick to like push people around.
I feel like with this one, they make him the victim, though. And I feel like he is the bully in the early stuff.
I would like to make an argument that he is a victim.
Yeah.
In the early
you mean
stuff.
In the comics too?
Yes.
Yeah. But he's playing it more like a victim.
This one is
That's
definitely more
saying.
focused on like PTSD.
Yeah.
Where like, well, you could still. We'll get there when we talk about Blob, because I think Professor X did a lot of damage real
I bet
quick.
He did.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything about these 10 minutes you'd like to put in here first before we start?
I would just say, I don't think that, while I can rationalize why maybe that fight happened with the Blob as a movie, I don't feel like it came back up. It didn't, like, we didn't have a situation where, like, I thought the movie was really good, and then a couple episodes ago I said, and this is the point.
It was literally last episode.
I was like, I think this is now getting worse and bad, and it has not come up for air. So there's no like up and down. It's just continuing its downwards trajectory here.
Every 10 minutes has seemed pretty solid storytelling. And then this is the one where it feels like we're in the middle of a run and they don't want to finish the run yet. So it's like these random issues.
Yeah.
To just elongate the story and so we can put it in a full trade.
I know this is crazy, but when Blob was like, when he was talking to John and Blob, like right in that scene, I was like, he was saying words and people and like whatever. And I was like, what? And I was like, I know what's happening. I've read all the comics. I've watched this movie before. I've watched all of all the minutes up to now. And there was definitely a second where I'm like, huh? Like, what are you saying? Just because there's so much jargon of like this military, this person, and like blah blah blah, all in like a sentence, and I was like, that is gobbledygook.
Well, we're also kind of doing the same thing twice. They're like, oh, you know who would know where this facility is? The Blob. All right, we'll go talk to the Blob. You go to the Blob, and he's like, yeah, no, that's a facility. I don't know where it is. Go talk to Gambit. So now we have to go to Gambit. It's like unnecessary.
Yeah, it's a little.
The whole Blob scene is kind of unnecessary.
It is. They definitely wanted Blob to be there because they wanted to touch on everybody who was in the original.
Exactly.
Like,
John Wraith could have just been like, yeah, go talk to Gambit. We didn't need that extra step, but it's fine, whatever. Yeah. Because the Blob stuff is still interesting to see him.
Yeah, it is.
Which I think for me, that's my opinion on most movie stuff. Yeah. I just like seeing him.
I wish,
because you never know when you'll see him again.
I hate to be like the person being like, it would have worked if they did it this way. Because we're talking about rewriting a whole movie. There's a lot of complicated steps that go into it. It's never that easy. But I do think it maybe would have, if they had pushed the point about how everybody is traumatized. Like they did say that, and they were like, we're all dealing with it in our own different ways. That's like John's line. But I don't feel like it really went anywhere. Like I don't feel like that's like. It feels like, oh, here's a rationale of why everybody's like this. But it's like the movie doesn't spend the time with that. If you're going to include that scene, I need you to have it. You just tell me something about it, right? Yeah. And I don't think they did a great job of doing that, or they didn't have time, or it was cut. I'm sure lots of reasons. So,
well, I will say that I was going to do a John Wraith / Kestrel highlight. The teleporter played by Will.i.am.
Who, by the way, did actually fine.
Yeah.
He's fine in this movie. I have no complaints.
Yeah. John Wraith has 14 appearances in the comics.
Yeah.
He's a Team X member. So a lot of the Team X storylines we've already talked about, he is often there. One of the big ones is when they were getting out the asset and Sabretooth kills the woman, and he's there for that. The other one from the Maverick story we were talking about last week, where I said Maverick's heart I don't think it got ripped out now, but he definitely got a hole punched in his chest. Mm-hmm. So the way that story plays out, that I kind of didn't say last time, is Weapon X wanted to recruit Maverick. So John Wraith got him to come visit him, and then Sabretooth attacked him from there. Or he attacks him, but he's trying to recruit him from there. So John Wraith is helping Weapon X get their old assets back. Sabretooth ends up choking John Wraith, and you don't quite know what ends up there. Like, it was definitely drawn in the way where it's like he could be dead, and we just walked away and he killed him, and somebody else can just say he killed him, and that's all there is to it. Or he's still alive and we're fine. Turns out he's still alive and we're fine. Fast forward to Jason Aaron's run of Wolverine. I think it's 2010. And he is a pastor at a church, and he's chatting with Wolverine. And it's sort of a 3 weeks ago situation, and then now. And do you know much about the Wolverine Goes to Hell storyline?
I know a little bit of it.
So basically the story starts out with, and that's all he's in. He's just in the first couple of issues. Actually, I think he's really only in the first issue, and it's a flashback. In the first issue, Wolverine comes back, but there's a demon driving his body. And Wolverine himself, Wolverine's soul is in hell being tortured, and his body is on Earth being piloted by a powerful demon.
Okay.
That demon kills John Wraith.
Okay.
That's really while he's protecting his congregation. And that's it. Like, he is not as important as this movie would make you believe.
That's the whole problem with Team X, right?
Yeah, right.
Is that like they were introduced, like I mentioned this before, and then they like went in a different direction with like the different people, and it is what it is.
It's I think Maverick's the only one. I mean, Sabretooth obviously.
Yeah, Sabretooth's just.
But Sabretooth was there before Team X, so you just kind of lumped him in it. Maverick was the only one I think they tried making his own character, and they tried hard, and I don't think most people cared about him.
It just didn't stick. Sometimes it's also, I think it's always so hard to push a character in solo books because people are usually there just for Wolverine, and whereas this is a Wolverine character trying to do his own thing. Yeah.
Sometimes it works though. Dawkins his own character now.
That's true. Dawkins went through rough times, though.
Dawkins comes from the messy stuff, too. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes the character is so interesting and charismatic, they will keep going.
I would argue a lot of people did not think that Dawkins was interesting or charismatic for a very long time before somebody got their hands on him and made it good.
And did it right.
Yes.
So, that's it. I wrote it down as like, because I sometimes make these notes where I'm like, all right, we'll see what he's got behind him. And then you get digging and you're like, oh, that hole was so shallow.
It's a super shallow hole.
I did one dig and I'm here and I'm done. And we're done.
I think this is valuable because, like, you know, when you see characters in movies, you think, like, in adaptations, you're like, well, this must be an important character because it was important enough for them to put in the movie. And sometimes that's just not true. Sometimes they just pick characters that are like, you know, out of a hat. Sometimes it feels
for plot devices, perhaps, or something like the
like
teleporter on the team.
Yeah,
I mean, the original Team X had a teleporter. Why don't we use him?
Right? Why not? So I get it. It's really interesting.
But Blob, on the other hand,
Blob is
Blob.
A long
Blob.
Yeah.
Great joke.
Terrible joke. I disagree with it. I disagree with you completely.
You got him always saying bub.
Yeah, but that's not close to Blob.
He doesn't hear it.
Whatever, man.
He's defensive. See, that's what I'm saying. That's the parts. I think that's the parts where I'm like, he's playing a victim. He's waiting for people to make jokes about his fat.
Yes, for sure.
Whereas I feel like maybe, like you were saying, I think that's more of it. It's like he's waiting for everyone to fat shame him. Yeah. And that's where the victimness comes from.
Yeah.
But originally, his first appearance is super early.
Yes.
He's in X-Men number 3.
Yeah.
It is Magneto as a villain. Not the Brotherhood, just Magneto. The Vanisher was number 2, and then the Blob was number 3. That's crazy.
I know. It's something to think. It's like so interesting to think about the Blob too, because like he's also drawn very differently. Like in the original, he's definitely a big guy, but I would argue he's not as big as he's drawn later.
But it's like if you look at old pictures of like sideshows where you're like the world's fattest man and you're like, he's fine.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just like it's
seen that guy in the train. I don't, whatever, man.
Yeah, but that's definitely he's part of a sideshow. Yeah. He's there because he can nobody can move him. He's immovable.
Yeah, it's people shoot bullets at him and they bounce off. People they put up a prize. If you can move me, you get money. And obviously there's 12 guys on him and he's not moving. It's fun.
The issue is pretty interesting because it's basically the X-Men inviting him back to Xavier's place and eventually to join the X-Men, and he rejects them. But it's very clear from the start of this comic that Cyclops and a lot of the other people on the X-Men do not like him, even though they're extending this invitation to him. It's not he's not a great guy either.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's kind of a bully. He's very brash. You can't make, I mean, let's be honest. His personality goes with his power. You can't get him he's stubborn.
Very.
You can't get him to do something he doesn't want to do. If he wants to not move, he's not going to move.
To double down on the stubbornness, do you remember how Professor X explains his powers in that comic?
No, I don't.
It is so interesting that I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily how we look at it now, but I thought it was clever. So he says to Blob Blob agrees to go back because Jean Grey is such a hottie.
Sure.
That he's like, well, I'll go.
Yeah.
So he goes, Professor
Canonically
X,
a hottie. Yeah.
Canonically a hottie. And so he goes through all the tests that Xavier puts him through. And Xavier says he's so interested in his powers because he says, the molecules in your flesh react to your mental commands and can perform almost any feat desired.
Oh, weird.
Isn't that? But I think that's exactly what stubbornness is.
Yeah.
So his stubbornness is made physical. It is actually really, I think that's a good way of putting it.
The way they explain it in future comics is if he doesn't want you to move him, you won't be able to.
Yes.
And there's a couple of ways we get around this. And I think we've mentioned it before, in passing.
Yeah.
Because in this one, I think Cyclops shoots the ground underneath him.
Yes.
And that's
Magneto
a good way.
Does something similar in a later issue. You move the metal things underneath Blob. You move the earth around Blob,
right.
Not Blob.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Blob is not happy that they're not happy and decides to try taking the sideshow that most of the circus back.
Yeah.
To attack the X Mansion.
Yeah, because basically he leaves the mansion after because this is the problem though, right? Because the X-Men are no one turns us down. And I'm you guys didn't have a plan B for when somebody was no, I don't want to join you.
And they have the secret identities at this point too. So they're well, you can't know where we are.
Right. But it's wait, why was this the plan? It's terrible.
Oh, it's a terrible plan.
It's a terrible plan. And it's also just
he's the first mutant they've tried recruiting.
It's issue 3, of course. Yeah. So I guess that's the thing where I'm a little sympathetic because it's they're inviting him, but they're not if the alternative to an invite, as we will talk about at the end of this episode, is your mind is wiped and you get mental blocks put into your head by some weirdo.
Yeah.
That's not a real choice.
Is that not a real choice?
It's not a real choice.
Sounds like Xavier might be the bad guy sometimes.
He is. Quite frequently. And this is not the first and only time that the Blob gets his mind messed with. But we'll talk about that. It's much later issues. But I want to talk about the return of the Blob, which is issue 7 in Uncanny X-Men in 1964. That's September. This one it's basically Magneto runs across the Blob and he's I must recruit him before the X-Men do because he's going to be perfect for my Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, who is the group that the Blob is most frequently associated with.
Yeah. But, different iterations even.
Yes. But my favorite part of this issue is that Professor Xavier in the mansion has this thing that's called the Master Control Panel, and there is a siren on it that is called the Known Hostile Mutant Siren, and there's just 6 buttons with the names of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants on it, and one of them is Blob, and that light lights up, and I'm look at this insane contraption for 6 buttons.
I was gonna say this is the first appearance of the first Cerebro, which wasn't a room like you imagine in the movies. Right. It is just wires, and they don't even look like wires. They look like poles, like a bunch of poles running into these like contraptions, and then it's in a desk. It's
very funny. Basically, Blob fights with Magneto because he fights with everybody.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't understand what's happening. He doesn't know that he's a mutant anymore because Professor Xavier wiped that in the first issue, and he doesn't know anything about the X-Men. He falls because Magneto fights back, and he knocks his head, and all of the Xavier blocks disappear. Xavier was much less powerful than earlier.
He gets better at it. I mean, you got to do it more. He's got to do it more than once,
I guess. And then you get a whole issue about how he joins the evil mutants to take revenge on the X-Men. Honestly, hard to argue at that point because it does kind of feel the X-Men were taking advantage of him and erased his mind, and were like even in the first issue when he's taking the circus to attack the X-Men, it's because his rationale in the comic book is that like they're not going to leave me alone because I know where they are, so I got to attack them first. And that's not just
wrong.
True.
He's not wrong.
That's just a factual statement. Like, I don't know what the other option was if you didn't want to join the X-Men.
Well, and he also doesn't know they're going to like mind wipe him like that either.
He definitely doesn't know. He just knows
they're going to come after him.
Right. Yeah.
I believe his next appearance after this, there's an issue that starts off with a couple of X-Men robbing a bank. Mm-hmm. And it is the Blob and Eunice the Untouchable, which is just a man who has this like weird force field around him that so no one can touch him.
Yeah.
Hence the name. He had a whole thing where he was a wrestler and Beast tried wrestling him, and it's fine. Anyway, I only bring this up because they aren't even the focus of that issue. They're just in the beginning. Cyclops once again shoots a hole underneath them. They land on a subway car and they go out of the comic, and then they become best friends. And I didn't know this until I was reading. It was like, Blob and Eunice are besties.
Really close.
Really close. In Marvel Fanfare number 7, they show up, and Eunice can't really control his power. So he's like in a circus type tent that no one else is in, but the tent is held up by his power.
Eunice the Untouchable's powers are exactly what they sound like. Things like can't touch, like it's hard for things. He pushes everything away from him, including, as he states in some of these issues, air molecules. So it's very dangerous. He's trying really hard.
But Blob, being his bestie, brings him food. And because he can't be moved,
right,
he's able to get through the force field to give him food.
Yeah. He has to feed him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Literally brings him a turkey leg.
Yeah.
And like puts it to his mouth.
Yeah.
Best friends.
Yeah.
They are best friends forever. This is an issue, though, where they end up fighting the Hulk. The Hulk, like, crashes into their circus. The Blob is running the circus at this point. I didn't mention that before. He's actually running the circus. Once again, bullying.
Yeah.
I'm still sticking with this. He's a kind of a bully. He could be a bully and a victim.
You can't
I feel
be
like
both.
a lot of bullies are victims.
Frequent. Yeah.
We're both right. So the Hulk is hungry and crashes a hot dog cart, and then causes a Hulk kerfuffle because it should be closed. Mm-hmm. So they fight him, and the Hulk punches Eunice so hard that it like nullifies his powers mostly. We fast forward to the next time they appear, which is in a Spider-Man comic.
Peter Parker's Spectacular Spider-Man in 1984.
Thank you. Which number is that? It's like 62 or something.
I didn't write that number down because I don't care about Spider-Man.
Hey, what?
I'm not sending you guys to read Spider-Man. X-Men issues only.
It's number 91. And it's like right after Secret War. So Spider-Man has his new black costume that he hasn't had for very long. And Eunice has now gotten his powers back, and they've gotten even worse.
Yeah.
And he ends up dying. He ends up like he can't, the air around him gets pushed away and he suffocates.
Yeah.
And then Blob is so distraught by this, he goes on a rampage. And Spider-Man has to stop him. And it ends up being like, Spider-Man doesn't even really stop him. He just like, Blob's just like, just stop hitting me. I'm so sad right now. And he sits down in the middle of traffic, and that's the end of the issue.
It's pretty horrible. You feel for him. I mean, Eunice comes back, just like everybody does in Marvel. But like, it is actually really sad. And okay, I don't think Blob is a good person. I think that
Well, I didn't say he's a good person.
He's definitely not. And I think that according to Marvel officially, there is like, if you look in like the details of like the character summaries for like Marvel Unlimited for Blob, in some of them, they say things like, despite the X-Men saving him every time that he's in trouble, he always chooses violence. Like Marvel's
Yikes, Marvel.
point of view on the Blob is that in a lot of ways, he always chooses to be a bad guy, which kind of is true. But
I like to think of it as he is stubborn. I like to think of it as you're giving him options he does not like and he did not choose. Right. And the only way he knows out of it is his own superpower.
Yeah. I also think that Blob is particularly susceptible to this mind manipulation, as I mentioned earlier. So we have the mind wiping by Professor Xavier. Did you know there was another time that the Blob was under the control of an ex-person, kind of? Okay, so we're talking fast forward a lot, like 20 teens, tens to teens. I can't remember exactly. We're talking about Uncanny X-Men 402.
Okay.
Okay, so we're fast forward quite a bit. And this is when Sean Cassidy, Banshee, has formed X-Corp.
Okay.
Do you know who the X-Corps are?
Oh, the X-Corps, like
yes.
with an S.
With an S. Not X-Corp, sorry. That's different. That's Angel.
They're a team. That's all I know. I don't know much about them.
Okay, so basically, during this period of time, the X-Corps are just kind of this military, they've become militarized. And it's primarily like, we've got Banshee, we've got Nightcrawler, we're talking Monet, Jubilee, Chamber. These are the X people that are around that for the uncanny issues, which is really interesting, right? Because we're not talking about Storm, we're not talking about Cyclops, we're talking about kind of like actually the Generation X kids, really.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
But it's run by Banshee, which makes sense because Banshee used to teach them. Like he was the teacher with Emma Frost for a while or whatever. No Emma Frost here. She must be elsewhere doing bad things. But
maybe.
What Banshee is doing is he kind of has this militant arm where he is fighting back against these human groups that are like killing and hurting mutants. Nightcrawler doesn't seem to love the idea. Same with Bobby Drake. So Iceman is there. So he's one of the few original people that are there. When they join up with Banshee to like kind of work with him or try to work with him, Drake and Nightcrawler, they realize that some of the people that are on the team include Avalanche and the Blob.
Okay.
And they don't really understand why Banshee's working with them, and then also like why they're working with Banshee. Like it's just a little confusing because this is an X group, right? Yeah. Like theoretically.
There's actually an Infinity comic from the Krakoan era, like during one of the Hellfire galas, where Monet looks like she's about to go do something, and Avalanche is like, "Oh, can I come with you?" And she's like, "Who are you?"
Oh my gosh, that's
like,
so funny.
On Avalanche, I was on X-Corps. You with the one with the S. I was on that one.
Yes.
No,
they were definitely on the same team. That's very funny.
But I love that she just like doesn't remember.
She doesn't remember him.
He didn't have his helmet on, in all fairness, and he's kind of generic looking guy.
He really is. He really is. They did a much better job with him in Evolution, making him distinctive looking.
Because I was reading one where he was injured, like during one of the Freedom Force issues, and he's laying down on a couch injured, and I was like, "Who's that?"
I know.
Oh, it's Avalanche. Okay.
Basically, they make an argument to them that like, oh, well, we're mercenaries. He's paying us. They're the best deal, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Chamber breaks into the basement of X-Corps. And when he does, he finds a mutant in a like test tube machine. And it is Martinique. Does that name ring any bells?
It does. Why do I know that name?
What about the name Wingard?
Oh, is this Lady Mastermind?
This is.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So this is Mastermind's daughter. So Banshee has her like hooked up to like machines and is using her to control these villains to use them for good.
I can see why you're saying he's a victim as well.
Yes. double cross in like issue 4 or 3, maybe 4 or 4. Banshee gets his throat cut from behind because Mystique and Martinique were actually working together to make Banshee think that it was all working, but it was a plot for Mystique to take over X-Corps.
Ooh, that's some comic book stuff I love.
It was. I will say, though, both Avalanche and Blob were under the thrall.
Okay.
So not only is he being victimized by Banshee, who is trying to put this together, he is also still being victimized by the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, a team of which he is frequently a part of.
He's part of the team that is right before Days of Future Past.
Yes, Mystique's team.
Yeah.
And he actually has a huge problem. He's still a jerk. Let me explain. He's a victim, still a jerk.
He's still a jerk.
He starts a fight with Mystique because he doesn't answer to a quote unquote, this is literally what is in the text, so I'm going to say a bad word, broad. Like, literally says that in the text.
Hey, it was the 80s, you know? Sometimes that's what you call the lady.
And anyway, Mystique was like, say that again to me and you're dead, basically.
Cracks her knuckles. What did you say? And then she makes more knuckles and cracks those too and go, keep talking.
It's very funny. All this to say, he is abused by Magneto. We didn't talk about that, but in the issue, the reason he doesn't end up going Magneto right away in issue 7 back in the 60s is because Magneto throws like 3 torpedoes at the X-Men and everybody's like,
that's right.
Wait, no, Blob is there because Scarlet Witch is like, don't hurt him. Blob, our friend Blob is over there. And he's like, I don't care. Like, so
because Blob's go-to move is to grab someone and not let go. And that's what he was doing.
So, I mean, I'm not defending Magneto here, but
no, but I'm saying like that's why he wouldn't just get out of the way,
right?
Like he's doing his move, and now you're throwing torpedoes at me, bro.
I know he is frequently abused both by the X-Men and by the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but he always chooses the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. That is somehow more acceptable to him for reasons that maybe I just cannot follow. But I do feel bad for the Blob because he is quite dangerous, and it is pretty frequent in the comics, I think, that people view him that way.
Yeah,
because like it's odd because he doesn't seem like he has like an overwhelming power, but he kind of does.
No, he's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
I mean, he took full blows from the Hulk.
Yeah,
no problem. The only reason the Hulk did anything is the Hulk like lifted it up so hard that the ground came with him.
Yeah,
like 2 points of the ground on one on each foot, just like came out.
Yeah.
He also fought the Grey Hulk.
Oh, okay. I didn't read that one.
The Grey Hulk did a thing where instead of hitting him, because he's less powerful than Green Hulk, he like pulled his belly fat so far that it like made him move.
Ah, interesting.
Which but
I don't know if that's would have been perfectly canon now, but
yeah, I don't know because I mean Hulks are still, even a Grey Hulk is still pretty powerful. It's just true. You know, whatever it is. I will say though, the Blob does get what I love about Krakoa. He gets a fair shake.
Yeah, everybody does
during Krakoa. It's interesting. I think what I like about Krakoa and what they do with the villains, and we keep bringing it back, I think, because it's so interesting when you change the dynamic.
Yeah.
If you tell him, hey, free room and board on this paradise island, we'll all forgive anything all of us have done. We'll just put that right there. You game? Just don't be a jerk. Just like don't they have rules that's mostly don't hurt the land and don't kill man. So if you just want to hang out on this island as long as you want, we're all cool. He becomes the bartender.
He does.
At the Green Lagoon, and he is there through like every issue. That is it's either him or a Knoll, I think are like the 2 big bartenders that are there. But it's like they just chat with him, and he grew a mustache and it looks fabulous.
He's having a great time.
He does get tricked into joining Orcus's MLF team.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's after we're starting to fall Krakoa and all that stuff. So, you know, you gotta get back to formula at some point. But he did get a nice little vacation. And I do appreciate that they gave him a vacation.
He's much better off in Krakoa than he was in House of M the other time that things got shook up. Because he ends up losing his powers. He gets depowered.
Yeah.
But then he has, like, the excess skin. And it's a very, like, interesting, weird, but also strange because that doesn't add up to what Professor Xavier says his mutant power is originally.
Yeah, I don't think
it's
that's
those things that shift around a little bit with him. It's hard to say. He fares much better under Krakoa's management. He's going to be a villain, though. I mean, because I have my own opinions about these characters. Mm-hmm. It's also sometimes kind of fun to see what the Marvel official stance on them is.
Yes.
And I think it's pretty clear that Blob is a villain to them.
Yeah.
But I think he could be redeemed.
I'm interested in what post-Krakoa characters do.
Yeah.
So, like, Pyro is still a good guy.
For now.
That's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
He got the taste of being a good guy, and he's like, let's keep doing this. I like that. I think it's interesting. Like, putting him back into society, what are they going to do?
I like that. You could play a lot with the concept of redemption and getting your second chance and doing your time, quote unquote, or whatever. Yeah, it definitely feels that way.
So I'm interested to see where. I mean, maybe he's done more than I've read so far, but that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
I think that about wraps it up.
All right.
You actually can find a few of these early comics on a lot of our, like, if you do Instagram, or I've been putting them on YouTube too. They used to be just a minute. I would do a full recap, or, as quick of a recap as I could in a minute. Some of these early comics. So, like, these Blob comics that we're talking about, number 3 and 7, are ones we have done.
Yeah.
We're starting to expand them a little bit more. So if you like to hear individual Silver Age comics, check those out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll be coming back for more Wolverine. We didn't have to talk much about Wolverine today.
No, we didn't talk Wolverine at all.
Feeling good? Feeling good about episode recordings? Does it?
I'm fine.
As the movie gets worse,
this is gonna get harder.
No, I'm saying, like, we can talk about not Wolverine.
Well, I can't wait to talk about next week because that's my favorite.
So that's character. What I'm saying. Like, we got to not do Wolverine slain lovers. Yes. So we got to talk about Blob. Just a classic character. Anyway, I've been Producer James.
I'm Sasha.
And we'll see you for the next 10.